at the end of his Daled. After invoking the mashal of the h'tשכ, which separates the higher organs from the lower organs in the body and allows the digestive system to distribute the nutrients accordingly. The parallel is the rakia between the upper waters and the lower waters, Maim Elyonim and Maim Tachtonim. So as we explained the Maimer, so the Mozen is like the essential Tainug, and then it's broken down into the upper Tainug and the lower Tainug via the Kravayim, the intestines, which is the union of the Malachim, that's the function of the Malachim. Lechem Abirim, that the Yidden ate in the Midbar, the bread of the mighty ones, referring to the Malachim. That's because they're like the Rakia, they allow for the breakdown of the Tainug Atzmi to be distributed, or the Mozen, the nourishment, to the various organs of the body. Right, without repeating the whole Arichas, and we hope that we're conveying this accurately. Now, concludes it now, V'yischalkus, as we pointed out yesterday, that when he says, V'al derech ma shekosuv, till the end of the brackets, first word of the top four lines, so that's all in parenthesis. It's al derech, it's not exactly the same thing for the reasons we pointed out yesterday. Now, v'yischalkus v'avdol zu, back to the general theme, that the krovayim are the malachim, and they can do their thing because of the rakia. The rakia allows the malachim. Did I say before that the rakia equals malachim? No, I didn't say that. No, it's not so. The rakia allows for, that's the h'tשכ, allows for the malachim, the kravayim, to do their thing. Which he now spells out for us, and this is all to answer the question. Which question? Right, how do we get ischalkus from achtus? So this is all to explain this. So let's conclude now the explanation. Ischalkus, again, 4 lines in the top of the page. Ischalkus v'avdol zu shenasis al yedei malachim ekrem krovayim. So this division that the malachim do, they break down the nourishment into its various components. And the components for our purposes are ruchni and gashmi, relatively speaking. The higher organs are ruchni, the lungs, and I don't know, he doesn't mention the brain and the heart, but they too are nourished by food, of course, by the nutrients, and then the lower organs, and then finally the waste. So they're able to do that because the Yosem Lamatim Marakia, because the Kravayim / Malachim exist, or their plane is below the Rakia, that's the h'tשכ that sits atop the liver, that separates, right, the lungs from the digestive system. So they are below this Rakia, Hamavda ben Amayim Elyonim l'Mayim Tachtonim, which separate between the upper waters and the lower waters, higher Tainug, lower Tainug. Kishem shakrovayim him lematim h'tשכ, just like the intestines are below the h'tשכ, shemavsik beinon lebein avod haneshima, that interpose between them and the higher organs of breath, the lungs and so on. Now, some detail in the psukim that reflect this. Shezem Mashakosev in Yecheskel's vision of the heavenly workings, he saw al roshe hachayes, or hachaya actually, the singular, Rakia, he saw upon the head of the Chaya, these are the Malachim, Rakia, an expanse, Ke'en hakerach hanoira, like the awesome, now kerach means ice, but it's often translated as crystal. Again, it's all metaphors. The language is Gashmius, but we're talking Ruchnius. So this is the Rakia we're talking about that is above the Malachim, which is the Chaya. We clear? Yeah? Gentlemen? Response? Yeah? Hainu she'rekiya hu l'mayla mehem. The rekiya is above them. Above whom? Above whom? The malachim, the kravayim. Va'ad she'legabam, so much so, ube'erukam, and relative to them, harihu ke'en ha'kerach ha'noira. It's called, he wants to bring out, it's called an awesome crystal or ice. The emphasis here is the awesomeness of it, that it is above them, and therefore spoil this tremendous divide. It's awesome. It's so lofty, even this division is lofty, that separates the upper from the lower. And this separation, this expands, this chatzar hakovid, the parallel in the guf, poel effects from malachim and akrem kravayim, the malachim which are called the intestines, shalamatim, which is below the rakia, yuchlu lifel polosam, can do what they need to do, and that is the chalakas hashefa, to break down the shefa. This is the food, this is the atzmis diketainug, the fiyerach hischalkas hamadreges, according to the various levels of the body of elyon and tachten. Okay, so this whole akdam is now to answer the question, and which he does so in a few words. Let's read it together. And this will explain. The problem of the question was, Ilul v'olul implies, means, perforce, that the olul, whatever's in the olul, must what? Olul is the result. Whatever is in the consequence, the result must exist where? In the ilul, in the cause. Now, the quote from the Gemara, it's a Gemara all over. Yesh b'chlal masayimone. In 200 is already 100. The Gemara uses as an expression. You don't have to spell out something that it's already implied in something greater than it that incorporates it. So that way he quoted that quote to strengthen the question that the source contains that which it produces, which left us with the question, but it produces is chalkos. It's anything but what the source is, which is achdus. Now I'm assuming there's no error here. This is correct. There's no typo here. So now he's saying the opposite. Now we'll understand that you say the shtalshalis works in such a way. That's not a mistake. It's in a way that it doesn't reflect the rule we invoked earlier, that the bigger or the source has to include the second. How could it possibly not? So let's just read the words. Given Shamshacha Lamatahu, how does this work? Let's just read the words and Shachitzonius nases muvdeles mapnimis. So the Rekiya, this is whole hasbara to explain the Rekiya and the Chatzar HaKoved and the Malachim, the Kravayim. Yeah, this is all to explain how that what happens is that the Chitzonius is separate from the Pnimius, and he emphasizes now what separates Chitzonius levad leloya Pnimius. So the Chitzonius separates without the Pnimius coming along with it. So what's it in the Nimshal? That the Pnimius of the Mozen ends up where? Ends up where? Where's the Pnimius of Mozen? The Gashmius. Where does the Pnimius of Mozen end up? It's separated, so where's the Pnimius of Mozen? No, the Pnimis HaMozen, the Evarim Elyonim. The Evarim Elyonim. And the Chitzonius goes to the Evarim Tachtoinim. Maim Elyonim, Maim Tachtoinim, gets divided. So he's telling us that what happens is that the Chitzonius, as a result of the Kerach HaNoira, it's awesome that it achieves this, but that's what it does. It makes this great divide in something which is essentially one. As I suggested, I'm hoping this is the pshat, that at the end of the day, the answer is, be'etzim, it's still tainuk, but it's gone in very different directions. Let's finish the words of the Maimon. Whereas before this division, it's not yesh b'chlal masayim mana. In 200, question friends, in 200, can you identify 100? Yeah? 100 exists in 200. He's saying, but it's not the way it works in State Ishtaushalis. You cannot identify the Chetzonius has no place in the Pnimius. Shetia Mitzius, in brackets, Shetia Mitzius Shel Tachten Ber Elyon. It's not that the Mitzius of the Tachten is in the Elyon like the 100 is in the 200. How was it there? Elohisa B'Teila La Pnimius didn't exist but bottle. Okay, end of Maimer, end of Hasbara. That's the words. Again, I'm open to your explanations. What I'm suggesting here is, L'chura, again, he's saying it's one Tainuk. But then it manifests, Pashit, in different worlds, a Tainuk Ruchni, Tainuk Gashmi. Like he said before, how does the Mesikus, the sweetness or the bitterness of the apple, it doesn't come in a vacuum, it all comes from where? Anybody? What's the marker?
Chesed.
But?
Chesed or Chachma.
Chachma. As we explained it, Chachma can,
Right.
Chachma can lend itself to Shammai and Hillel, the same Svara. The same Svara that man is inclined to being, his Yetzer Hara that dominates him from birth, is the reason to give him a break or to do away with him. That's the same reason to bring him mabul or not to bring him mabul. Almost the same language the Torah uses. Why Hashem says mabul and why Hashem says no mabul. It's an incredible example in Pshut Yishol Mikra of the Nekudas HaChachma that can be then translated in Chesed and Gevurah, Shammai and Hillel, so that we understand. But how does it end up in the sweetness, begashmis of an apple, or the tartness of an apple, of another kind of apple? It's a different mohus. And he's answering this question now, because the same thing is the Tanugim. The Tanug Ruchni, the Tanug Gashmi is they're different worlds. Achtas is one world, Ischalkus is another world. So the answer is that all, the Pnimius of it all is one Tanug, one this HaKadosh Baruch. The whole world was originally submerged in water. That's the Gilui of the Eibush says what? What's the meaning of that, L'chura? The world submerged in water means the Hashem's original Yisav HaKadosh Baruch that embraces everything. Then he makes this division. As a result of the division, all of a sudden, this Tainugim Gashmiyim, which are going in a completely different direction, and Bechitzonius is Chalkos versus Achtos. But what's the Chiddush of the Maimar over here? It's all the Mozen. It all comes from one place, it's all Tainug. So, I've told you now, the more I quote this fellow, a little bit of research could find out who it is. In 2 seconds, no doubt. I heard on the radio once, I quote it often, some famous philosopher, or maybe a famous psychologist, psychiatrist, psychologist, said that all human endeavor can be reduced to the pursuit of pleasure and the distance from pain. He nailed it. Tainug. What's the Maimah telling us now? That every Tainug Gashmi is really, it's rooted in the Tainug Ruchni. It's separated and assumed a whole different form. But Be'emes is the same thing. We're looking for the Eibishter. We're looking for that Tainug, that desire that he has for us that starts this whole thing. That Nisav HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the answer. And that's the whole need for the whole Arichas HaSbara, the whole long explanation, because it all starts with the Mozen, the food, that then gets divided into radically different nutrients, spiritual nutrients almost, that nourish the brain and the higher organs, and physical nutrients. And not just that, now the next ice is there's even waste. How does that get into the picture? So that's going to deal with the waste. It's also part of the Kavan Elyon. It's all also rooted in the Tainuk, even waste. Putrid, the waste, the excrement. L'chura, this is the explanation. Let's continue it now. Yeah, let's plow ahead. And if we are in error, may the good Lord enlighten us.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly again, try and answer.
Until now, I personally was expecting the revelation of how much comes from singularity. Like we got the mechanism, but not the how. Like we know who does it. It's the Rabbi, it's the Malachim, it's the Rakia. But you had said earlier, we see it's really one Tainuk. It became an upper Tainuk and a lower Tainuk. How does that's Yischalkus there, an upper Tainuk and a lower Tainuk. How does that happen?
That's the Kerach HaNoira. That's the Rakia. That's the whole Arichus here. And why he calls it awesome? Because it is awesome to have created such radical differences. Even though at the core it's one. But that's the Kerach HaNoira. That's the Chatzara covered.
We knew it was going to be awesome. We knew the answer was going to be it's an awesome power, but it also still didn't give us how that happens. I just want to know if I'm right or if
The answer is because there's no real at the core change. It's Chitzonius versus Pnimius. There's no real change. It's one search. It's one drive, Tainuk. And that has not changed. That's the Nukud of the answer.
So what we said right at the beginning, you had said to us, we know the answer. If you've learned Chassidus before, you know the answer. Simsum. That's what we came
He doesn't say the word Simsum once. I don't know. He doesn't say it once.
Right.
That's what he means here. It's orichin a little bit because, classically, this is not kind of the answer here. Because classically, we talk about the Tzimtzum in Oir, and because of the Tzimtzum that is like Koich and Gvul, it's a different inyan than the Koich HaBli Gvul, therefore it plays on the Bli Gvul and produces a radically new Gvul versus Bli Gvul. Now we're not saying Gvul versus Bli Gvul. We're saying, now that when we speak Tzimtzum, we're saying, yeah, there's a real change. It started off Oir, now it's Keli. Started off Bli Gvul, now it's Gvul. And that's the end of how? Because Gvul and Bli Gvul all equally him, it's a whole different Asbara. Here, the end of the day we're left with, this is nothing real, no change. At the core, there's no change. That's the Chiddush here. The core, it's Tainuk. And how do we match that with this classic answer of Tzimtzum? Needs to be thought about. I can't tell you right now, because note again, it doesn't say the word Tzimtzum once. Because the Tzimtzum, again, classically does produce something other than was there originally. There's Bli Gvul, there was Pshitus, and now there's Gvul. The Teretz is, the Eibush is beyond both, he can manifest in both, all those asbaras. But we're left with a duality that is rooted in a transcendent source. They were saying, no real change, it's Taina. That's the Chiddush here. Which is, I think, deeper even than the classic answer of Atzmos is higher than Gvul and Bli Gvul, and therefore it can manifest both. It's even deeper than that. I'll leave this for the great Maskilim. I'm always reminded, I told you many times, of B'Shilim, the famous Mashpir, beloved Mashpir, Meliובאוויטש. So he used to sit in the Zal, at his place in the Zal, and think. And I don't know if he said it, but he was asked, like, he had his little room, you can think in your room. It wasn't during Seder Chassidus, necessarily. It was a message. You would just be completely lost in thought for hours on end. It's a message to the Bachar. You can learn, but you have to think it through. It's a haravanya. It's a real haravanya to think and stretch the mind, to think in abstractions and in ruchnias, not in physical imagery, but in inyan. Lo pashut at all, as we all know, we'll struggle with. Okay, Oisei. But now the question is, what about the psoilas? Tainugim. Now the question, I think we're on the right track, because the question now really becomes stronger. So if you're talking about classic tzimtzum and division, there's one manifestation and a different manifestation and a third manifestation. There's no big kasha. But if we're saying now it's all one inyan, it's all tainug, it's a question of pnimius and chitzonius, conscious, subconscious. But how does psoilas get into this? The answer would be there's tainug there too. corrupted tainuk b'tainuk. That's going to be the answer. Let's see. How do we understand the psoilus, the waste that's rejected, that's expelled? In brackets, milvad, in addition to, over and above, pulas akravayim, l'chalik hashefa, l'fiyarech hamadreges del v'tach. This is beyond the shefa, which is the tainuk, the life-giving tainuk, the muzzin, that is divided according to the various upper and lower organs. Now we're saying this is completely rejected. So we have to understand, kifishu b'sei d'rishtaushul is l'mayla. What does it mean l'mayla? And therefore understand what it means l'mata. Yeah, l'hovin zeh yesh lahakti mashakose b'parshas nitzavim. So the Eibishter says, we have to preface what it says in Parshas Nitzavim, reino sati lefanecha. The Eibishter says, see, I've placed before you, and now he spells out what it is. Number one, well, actually 4 things. 2 categories, 4 things. Shtayim shin arba. Achayim v'satoiv. Life and good. And then maves v'sara. Death and evil. So let's analyze this. We're concerned with the negative right now, the psoilus. So the pasuk writes and distinguishes between maves is one thing and ra is another thing. Now, which is lower? Answer: now taking the cue from the words in the pasuk that preceded, where chayim appears before toiv. Now, which is higher there? Life or good? Answer: good is higher than life. How do we know that? Because the pasuk says so. It's a pasuk, explicit pasuk in Tilim. Better is your chesed than life. So, toiv, good, is higher than life. So the inverse would mean that that ra is lower than maves. Clear? That bad is lower than death. Moving shekendo gambem sakosov such understood therefore that the pasuk is consistent. Vesamoves vesara. When it says maves vesara, we're getting worse, greater. Sharaho lamata yosim maves, that evil is worse even than death. Kinyan hamaves are actually the sachayim. We understand because death just means the absence of life. Mashenkin rahin shall hazek, but ra is already injurious, damage, which he's now going to explain. Baruch Nias. The matter is as follows. The Hinde, excuse me. So we were saying that through the digestive system, so the food descends to each world according to its level. Now he's speaking Baruch Nias. The Kravaim, just a bit of revision. Who are the Kravaim Lamaila? What's the Kravaim Lamaila? What did we say? The Malachim. Yeah. That's not just the Yidden. Ishtalshalus is the source of all of existence. So the 70 princes, which are the source of the Malachim, of the 70 nations of the world from which all humanity descends. They're called the Elikim Achedim. Now this expression Elikim Achedim is troublesome. You're calling them Elikim? Foreign gods, I'd even call them Elikim. So the simple pshat is that others make them godly. But Bepnimius it means Elikim is Elikus here. There is Elikus, but Achedim, it's Achorayim, it's hinder, it's through great concealment. Because they get their nourishment, the life force from the hinder part of Kedusha. So tell me, what does this mean? We don't mean Begashmi, it's front to back. What does it mean? The hinder part of Kedusha? Rabbi gives a moshel for it in Tanya, in fact. Anybody? Huh? Yeah, so what is it? Just unpack the moshel. What's the point of the food over the shoulder? When would you give someone food over the shoulder? Why would you do that?
It's an incidental consequence of a bigger idea. When you have a big party or something that you want it for these people, but you have to feed.
Who are these in the moshel? Who are the people?
Us, Jews.
The Ayin Sorim, really, but that's the nimshal already. But now I'm talking the moshel. The moshel, I think, is in Tanya. It's a moshel, a moshel, a simple parable. Not a parable. Yeah, a parable. A king and prisoners. The king has people in prison. Now, why does he have them in prison? Because they're going to serve the cause for whatever reason. So they have to be kept alive. But it's not the Pnimius HaKavana, they're a means to an end. They're a means to an end. So therefore, how are they fed? They're not fed face to face at the king's table, but they're fed, literally the God opens the thing and passes in the food. This B'chinas Acharayim means when something is a means for an end. I don't want you per se, but you serve the purpose until you're transformed or elevated and become an ally. So that's the physical imagery of throwing the food behind your shoulder. You don't want to do it face to face. Face is Pnimius. It means I want this relationship with you per se. No, I don't. It's just you are useful for the cause. Nachman, let's learn. This is what we're dealing with now. Nachman, let's learn. How many days is there already? 46 or 47 days. So the Ayin Sodim, they get Acharayim the Kedusha, V'tam Adovad, Kiv. They don't have bittul, and if they don't have bittul, therefore they don't express godliness. And therefore, they can't even get it face to face. Because to get it face to face means you have to be bottled to the source, and they don't want to do that. And so therefore, how do they get it? He's implying here it's two ways. They turn their back, and the mashpiyas turn their backs. Midah keneged midah. Face to face means I melt into you. Turning my back means I refuse to melt into you. I'm retaining my identity. So the Charaim is both ways, the back to back, the Pnimius. The moment.
But they were created like that.
Yeah, they were created that way, and it's our job to enlighten them that they should turn around. Hey, mister, I'm talking to you. Turn around. Panim al panim, and receive, the Chayes Elikibe Pnimius and become part of the world of Achdus, part of Kedusha. That's the Al-Kavana. It's to turn the world around. Face to face. Shom, but meanwhile it's Acharayim, Nimsha Achayis Metzumtzum B'Yoyse, so a very limited life force is drawn down. Ad Shehu B'Dugmas. Next page. Histalkas Achayis. It looks like there's no life force at all. Spiritually dead, physically alive, but spiritually there's no trace of spirituality, and that's death. Evil is even worse, we'll see. That's called death, Kishem, and he illustrates physical death. Shagam, Kishem, just like Shagam Lachar Istalkas Nefesh, after the soul departs the body, Nishar Aguf, Beguf Chais Mitzumtzum, the body doesn't disappear. There is still a limited life force. Al derech kista d'chayusa. Kista d'chayusa means a measure, a small measure of life force. Hanikar, which is called in the Zohar, Havola de Garmei, the breath of the bones, literally. There's a life force that keeps the physical body alive. Because of this kista d'chayusa, kista also means like a box, it means a measure, a small measure of life force. This keeps the body alive even after the nefesh is left, the life has departed. And simul is also, that's maves. That's maves, not ra, but it's maves. Spiritual death. There's no animation of spirituality at all. No awareness of it, no experience and no expression of it. Just like inanimate things, like stones. There's no life force of it, like that you see in a human being, but and not in the living creature. Not even in growing in the vegetative world. That's what's called silent. Daima means quiet. There's no movement, there's no life force. Nonetheless, you cannot say that there's no life force within it because it wouldn't exist. It wouldn't exist at all. The daimim is there. We must conclude that there is a life force that it brings him into being. That's mahavil, machaya, and animates him. Mekayim keeps it going. The mitzias. Hello, conclusion. The life force is so contained and so screened and so limited. It's called lack of life, and that's mavis. So that's the first level, that's pseilas, and then you'll get to Ra. Kabir that's coming. The whole point is going to be that at the end of the day, even all of this is a corruption of Tainuk. It's still not something else. Okay.